Social factors are things that influence individuals' personalities, attitudes, and lifestyles. Parents or carers are one form of a social factor that influence an individual. For example, David Beckham's children were into football. Parents as carers impact things like travel to practice and competitions, because it will be down to if the parent are able to drive their child to practice or competitions, or do they need to get the bus, have commitments prior to football or practice or competitions, as it is not uncommon that individuals have to come home, do their homework, help with their siblings before taking themselves off to training. Parents/carers also provide emotional support. Following losses and poor games, Mike 2011. This is because if the parents dwell on the loss, the child will become fearful to the mess up, or the loss. Whereas if they have a good balance between the loss and other topics, the individual is more likely to try just as hard, if not harder, in the next match. Family background is another social factor that is impacted. This is because if you are from a rich background, you are able to afford to work less hours to make sure your child can get to practice or competitions on time, or you are able to afford someone that can take the person or do the extra activities that need to be done before. However, it will also impact time. The lower background you are from, the more hours you are needed to work in order to be able to afford the lifestyle you want to live or need to live, or just to be able to pay the bills. This will also impact things like making sure your child has the best kit, able to afford, can they practice on their own time rather than just at practice, and always be at competitions, can they afford everything, can they afford to go to practice, rather than having to worry about whether you're going to be able to afford the next thing the next week. Peer groups, friendship quality, social support, and teammates are strongly related to youth participants' motivational orientations and behaviour. Smith 2007, Wise and Stunts 2004. Children and adolescents who report greater companionship, self-esteem, loyalty, intimacy, similarity of interests, and emotional support with sport friends experience greater enjoyment, perceived competence, self-determined motivation, and commitment to their activity participation than those who report lower friendship quality. Wise and Stunts 2004. In middle and late childhood, qualities such as companionship, similar interests, and absence of conflicts are more characteristic of friendship in sports, whereas adolescents view psychological and behaviour features such as loyalty, intimacy, admiration, and conflict resolution as more prominent. Wise et al. 1998. By contrast, greater reported conflicts, betrayal, disagreements, and arguments with friends in sport are counterproductive to adaptive, motivational, and health-related outcomes. Wise et al. 1998. This shows that overall, if your friends have different interests to you, or you're more likely to argue with them, you're more likely to not have an interest in that sport anymore due to trying to follow and keep that friendship with that person. Stigmas are another social factor that influence the individual as it becomes a label by Dove 1998. For example, if you say boys play more sport than girls, then you're creating an existing gender stereotypes within gender-appropriate sports, which are becoming perpetual, so they'll never end up stopping and constantly be putting off people from continuing their sport, continuing doing what they love, in the fear of either they're playing too much or too little of the sport. So rather than creating them trying to stick at it, if you're a boy and saying that you should be playing more, it could do the opposite effect and have them not want to play it in case they're playing too little or not well enough. Whereas for girls, still creating the gender stereotype of they shouldn't be playing sport, they should just be there to be seen, you're then putting them off from living an active, healthy life by saying that boys should play more. So if they see a boy not playing much sport, they may think they have to play even less, when that's not possibly the case what they want to do. Social media is another factor that can impact your participation in sport. This is because when I was growing up, all my friends on social media at school had the latest news on what had happened to a celebrity, latest music coming out, all the fashion trends. Whereas when I went to my social groups that I did the sports with, all of us on our screens had sports coming up, the latest kit coming out for that sport, rather than the latest fashion trend and all the information like that. However, it doesn't just impact you by what's coming up on your screen as to the latest trend that's going on. It can also over dramatise sports, such as, for example, rugby is often deemed as a very dangerous sport. However, if it's so dangerous, why are school children allowed to play at school, learn how to tackle, and are able to play it if it's such a dangerous game that puts your health at risk? So, social media has a way of painting things out to be what they're not and to be what they are to a dramatic effect, which is why it will impact people playing sports in general, because if it's what they're doing is painted in a negative light, they might not want to be associated with what's negative. They might want to have a more positive outlook on their life. Or they may be ashamed of why they're playing it or what they're playing. So the second something negative comes out, they feel the need to drop it so they aren't associated with the negative light.